Hello, this is Esther. I'm just doing a quick review of my midterm project for Game Engine Fundamentals. I named this game Shape Shooter, and it's a very basic top-down shooter game. Not doing anything special with the game, it was just part of the midterm project, but I made a lot of progress with this and I want to make a video about it. So you can see right away I have a start screen with instructions. Very basic. You can move with WSD. Arrow keys. I have one type of power-up called a bomb, which I'll get to, and just a quick instruction on how to play. You can go back and then start the game. You have 10 health. You can move with WSD, as I said before, and you see there's an enemy that spawned right there. I'm using the arrow keys to shoot. I just hold down the button in the direction I want to shoot. And yes, this here is a bomb power-up. Pick this up, and now you're able to use spacebar to eliminate any and all enemies on the screen. And you'll get score for that. You can't go past the boundaries, there's no wrapping, so if you hit the boundary of the wall, that's that. The game will get harder as time progresses, and the main way that happens is that just more enemies will spawn over time. So the spawn rate increases, and there's no other way to win, you just have to survive and get as many points as you can. So the three types of enemies, as you can see, there's a circle, that's green, a triangle, I'll wait for it to be on screen. There's a green circle, there's an orange triangle, and a red diamond. The green circles are the easiest. I tried to have them color-coded to match their difficulty level. So green is the easiest. They're very slow, don't have a lot of health. The triangles are the second strongest. They're actually the fastest, but not as much health as the diamonds. So you can see the triangle there is about a lot faster. The diamonds have the most amount of health and the second fastest speed. The only issue with this game right now, I would say, is that you can tell that you can hit an enemy right as it spawns. There's no kind of buffer or way to avoid touching an enemy right as it spawns, which is not the best. Another issue is that you can tell right away there's no pushback when an enemy touches the player. So I could easily get hurt twice here just by being right next to them. There's no period of time where the player is safe. If they touch an enemy, then they'll get hurt. So there's no immunity frames or anything like that, so that would have been nice to add. I have this nice game over screen here when the game ends. Your health cannot go below 0, and it will show your score here in the corner. As you saw, there is a delay with the enemy spawn, so there's one that's always going to spawn right after the game over screen appears, but that's just because of the delay in the spawn. And you can just play again here. It's very simple. Nothing crazy going on, like I said. Yeah, and you can see there is a animation for when the enemies die. I did use some assets from the Unity store. They're free, so that animation there, the explosion, is not mine. I did not buy it or license it or anything like that. It is free for use and whatnot. Everything else, though, I used to have a sprite for the main character, or the player, but I didn't end up using that. But that is in the reference of my code as well, and I'll show that if you're interested. The background is also not mine. It comes with the space set with the bullets, which are not mine. These bullets here don't belong to me, and the explosions are a separate package. So that's my game. Now I'm going to show you a bit of what it looks like in Unity and a bit of my code. So let's just die real quick here so I can show you what that looks like. So here there's no pushback, I can just constantly get hurt. Okay, so that's that. Here's what it looks like in Unity. Here's my screen. As you can see on the screen, I have my player and a empty object called bullet spawner, which is placed right at the top a little bit. Oh, it's not centered, but that's okay. It's placed slightly above the little spot here where it's supposed to look like a little nozzle or something where the bullet comes out of, but because of the size of the bullet, it's round. I didn't put it here because I don't want it to overlap with the sprite. I also have a game manager, some walls, just grouped together in an empty object, top wall, left wall, right wall, and then the canvas, which shows all of my UI. And it's all hidden right now, of course, but it activates when certain parts of the game are on or off. Now I'll show you a bit of my code. I have a bunch of scripts here you can see at the bottom, but I didn't actually end up using all of them. For example, I had an idea for a laser power-up that allowed a player to shoot a beam and kill all enemies that hit that beam. So like you can cut through enemies. If there's like a whole bunch of them grouped up, you'd be able to kill them all. But I was not able to get that working. So this script is pretty much unused. You can see it's very empty here in the preview. I have game manager. I'll just show you the code. So this is my game manager. I don't have anything particular I want to show in game manager, but I can kind of take a look at what I was working with here in the start. You know, you just initialize the player, the enemies, and the controller script that comes with the player. And this is the method for the title screen, which basically shows the UI and whatnot. This code here runs the health damage, so if the game is active and the player touches an enemy, they will lose health. And if their health reaches 0 or below, then it will stop the game, basically. And you'll see the game over screen. This updates the score if an enemy is killed. It's pretty much the same as the player lose health, but now the player gains score. And this is the code for the spawn enemy. There is a spawn delay, like I said earlier. That's the issue that happens when the game over screen comes up and there's still an enemy that spawns, but it's not really breaking the game in any single way, so I think it's fine, because you can't lose any more health after the game is over, so there's no issue of losing any more health or gaining any more score when the game is over. I'm going to kind of just look at my code here. I won't go into specifics of that, but here is the bomb power-up. It just spawns randomly on the screen, and this is just these are just my screens, so it just activates or deactivates the UI. Very standard. This is the screen boundaries. I used a tutorial and ChatGPT for help with this, but it basically just calculates the screen to world point using the camera, and it targets the different parts of the screen basically at 0, 0, like coordinate wise, and the x coordinate, y coordinate, etc. And here are the assets that I used. I used 2D pixel spaceship, space star field backgrounds, and free 2D impact FX. And you can find all of these on the Unity asset store page. They're all free, and you can go and use those, and these are the URLs if you're curious. But that's that. I'll show you player controller real fast. I originally intended in earlier versions you could look diagonally using the up arrow, left arrow, right arrow, down arrow, blah blah blah. But it became a lot to memorize for people to use, and I tried to simplify the controls a bit more. So right now, let me show you exactly, this is how the player moves. Just uses horizontal and vertical. And I deleted left, right, up, down from the settings so that you don't affect, so it no longer affects WASD and the arrow keys at the same time for movement. So WASD is specifically for moving, and the arrow keys are specifically for shooting. So this is just a movement code, and I'll get to the shooting code. This is the delay for the bullets using an enumerator. And here is how the player aims. They basically take your key input code, so this is the up arrow, and we have this boolean I created which is true. Then basically it transforms the angle of your player and sets it to this particular coordinate. So 0, 0, 0, 0 means it's just like default kind of looking upwards basically. And so that's why it's tied to the up arrow key. If you're looking left, it'll rotate you, this is the Z rotation, it will rotate you 90 degrees, so facing left. If you're pressing the down arrow key, it'll rotate you 180 degrees, so reverse, and then 270 to the right. And I had some code working for the diagonals, but only for, I think, northeast, like looking up into the right. That was the only code that was working. One of these, I forget which one, but one of them was working and the rest weren't for some reason. So I'm not really sure, because it's all about angles, so I'm not really sure what's going on there. Here's just a trigger collision. If the player triggers a power-up, then they have that power-up and they can use that. Destroy enemies with bombs. So basically I have an array here of enemies. So because I instantiate or create a new enemy every couple of minutes or seconds or however long, I need to target all of the enemies that are created and get their script, which all enemies have this script called general enemy behavior, which I'll show you in a minute. And from inside that, for each script of the enemy inside that array, it will create that animation that I have that I've taken from the Unity store. It'll just place that where the enemy was. It'll delete the explosion after a certain amount of time. Then it'll destroy that enemy, and they'll update your score by 1. And then it'll say that you don't have that power up anymore. It's very simple. And I also added a sprite rend color, so you can there's a visual feedback when there is when you pick up that power up, you'll go back to the original color, so you won't be yellow anymore. If the player collides with an enemy, we have change color red, then change it back to blue. If the player touches an enemy, they go to red, and then yellow if they have a power-up. So this is just me kind of fixing some bugs. I had to use a coroutine, and I had to stop the coroutine if that was happening. This one is a little bit tricky to figure out, so I'm glad I was getting this to work. Because you have to account for when the player has a power-up and touches an enemy, because otherwise they were just staying in that. So they turn red when they touch an enemy, and then turn back to blue. And if they have a power-up, they turn yellow. But they should still turn red when they hit an enemy. So I had to account for when the player is yellow and touches an enemy, because otherwise they would turn red and wouldn't turn back to their original color. So that's what this code is basically accounting for. And mainly with this line right here, this if statement basically. Check if there's a coroutine running. The coroutine meaning the code that runs if you change color or not, and if it's being interrupted or not, basically just stop the coroutine so that it changes back to the original color. Switch color, player color back to original. I had a bunch of code I didn't use down here, so we're just gonna ignore that. And then general enemy behavior, all the enemies have this script. Basically kind of takes note of their health and the damage that they take. So if the enemy has 0 health or below, then they basically die, destroy that, and then update the score. And then, after a while, just create an explosion. And add some more help here with wanting to get the enemies that spawn to stop moving when the game is not active. So once again, I had to use that array or list of all the enemies that exist with this tag. I'll show you exactly what that looks like. So they all have this tag right here of enemy. Find the enemies with the tag, and then for each and every single enemy inside that list, if the script is there, if you can find the script of that enemy, then get the script basically. It's looking for it. It's basically looking if it exists or not, and then return that. Yeah. And then just basically do damage or destroy an enemy. Very simple. Now each particular enemy has their own unique script. There's an easy enemy behavior, there's medium enemy behavior, and then there's difficult, I think it's hard enemy. Yeah. Hard enemy behavior, easy enemy behavior, and there's medium enemy behavior. And these are unique to each enemy because they each have different movement speeds and different amount of health. So this basically just allows the enemy to move, and they do so by following the player. It basically chooses the target, which in this case the target is find the player's location, and then, if the target is there, basically change their velocity to look in the direction of the target. So basically just find the player and go towards that. Same with how they face, because this is just for the movement. This is just how they move, but they also have to be able to look in that direction. And it's basically the same thing. Find the target, find the player. Find the distance between the target and the enemy's location. And then we have to do a little bit of calculating the angle at which to rotate using this, which I'm not 100% sure how this works, but it basically finds the direction of the X and Y coordinates and then rotates in a particular degree to find the target. And then I just have this here just in case something goes wrong. If the game is reset and whatnot, it resets all the enemies. Lastly, I found this great tutorial on YouTube that just makes sure that the player can't they can't just fly off into nowhere's land. They are stuck within the borders of the screen, which is really great, and it works very well. So it's just this link here. If you just look up screen boundaries Unity, you'll find it. It's like the first thing. It's like a rocket ship tutorial. It's really great. It basically creates screen boundaries using the screen to world point that I talked about earlier. And it will get your player sprite renderers of the X and Y coordinates. And then it will prevent you from moving outside of those boundaries using a clamp. Which, again, I'm not very sure how that works, but the tutorial does a way better job of explaining that than me. So that's it for my code and my game. You are free to try it out. Sorry about that. You're free to try it out if you would like. If you do, I hope you have fun with the game. So thank you very much.